Thanks for tuning in, guys. This episode is brought to you by Old Man Copper, Smoke Eater, Mustache Wax. Literally smells like a freaking house fire. Keeps you thinking about jobs all day long. Use discount code COPPER, COPPER, 10% off. Good dude. Check him out. Instagram, Facebook, website, oldmancopper.com. Thank you. All right. Welcome back, everybody. I have the privilege to sit down with Chief Tige Harmon. He's been married for 31 years, 4 kids, 4 grandkids, 5th on the way. Chief Harmon is a second-generation fireman. His grandfather was a firefighter in Kern County, California. His number 2 kid is actually on the job also, which is amazing. He started volunteering in 1994, went through EMT and medic school, and started as a firefighter paramedic in 1997 with the Salem Fire Department. In 2000, he went to Vancouver Fire Department, where he spent 8 years as a firefighter medic, most of that time on a truck company. And again, we love truckies on this show. He promoted to captain, was able to stay on the same truck for 10 years, which is just a dream come true right there. Can't believe he ever promoted past, but then went to battalion chief and then spent 5 years as a BC, promoted to deputy chief, and now he's at assistant chief of emergency operations for Salem Fire, and he oversees EMS and training. So, Chief, welcome. Besides butchering your name and we even talking off screen, is there anything I missed, or is there anything you want to add, sir?
No, I think that's a good start. That'll work just fine.
All right, perfect. Well, again, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit down on the show. So we really want to get talking. Not only do we get connected over social media and the bond over being truckies, but we want to talk ICS today. Something that we haven't had a chance to really sit down and talk about. And we were talking off camera before, and it is pretty much your jam in the fire service right now. So if you don't mind, Chief, just start breaking down to the audience how you're involved in the ICS system. What are you currently doing? What are you changing? And how that affects the fire service, boss.
Gotcha. I think ICS is a pretty important topic. There's lots of ways to do the same thing. If we look at the fire service in general, you've got NIMS as kind of the umbrella for everyone, but it was not built for firefighters. It wasn't built for the fire ground, and there's a lot of frustration in how to employ it. There's a lot of options. I know where you're from in the Valley. There's volume 2. The rest of the world calls it Blue Card, which definitely makes some good changes in the fire service. My previous agency, Vancouver, went to Blue Card, 10, I don't know, maybe longer than that, 12, 15 years ago. And it changed the way we did things. It made us better, tightened up a lot of things that were pretty loose, and really brought in a lot of consistency. So I don't have anything bad to say about it. It is very triggering to some people. Just saying those words causes a lot of anxiety and angst. And if you look at it as truly a communication system, it's fantastic. It works great. And I don't have any real negatives. Tactics, there's a lot of things I disagree with on the tactics of a Blue Card, and that's really not what it's intended to do. So when I came to Salem, they use a program called ITAC, which is kind of a local thing up here, something that we looked at in my previous agency and wasn't a direction we wanted to go. Coming down here, it's a great time to change, to bring in something new, something better or different, lots of ways to look at that, and really make something that's expandable, that uses plain text, that's simple, and that we can manage and take from one incident and move it to any other incidents, and we start at the same foundation. A lot of the ICS systems, they fit well for single alarm residential fires, but if we had a big commercial fire, we'd have to make changes. If we had a vegetation fire and that got bigger, we'd have to make changes and make different accommodations. And for company officers, it should be something that's simple. We can use it on all of our incidents. We can expand it. We can contract it, make it work for us. And as a truckie, I need it to be as simple as possible. Basic words, simple to understand. Everyone gets it, from the firefighter level to the chief officers. They can plug in and play their part. So my current chief is from California, San Diego City, and they're using FireScope, which is a very, very thorough, simple process that's expandable. When I came down here, we had an opportunity to create our own system. So I worked with our our neighboring agencies that we just engaged in auto aid. We literally started auto aid July 1. I started June 30th. We went to auto aid July 1st. First time that auto aid's been used down here. And there's a mix of everything in the 3 departments that are now doing auto aid. So there was a need to bring everyone together, get on the same page with this. We need to be on the same page as far as terminology and command functions and priorities. Now, how you do it, some of your tactics can be different. Some of your things at the company level, your response plans, you can make alterations based on your staffing and size of department for that. But as far as the words, how we call things, what we call them, we need to be on the same page. So I met with those ops chiefs and kind of gave my plan that I'd like to create our own system from the ground up, and let's build it so that it works across all incident types, and we can expand it as big as we need to or keep it as small as we want and have a similar terminology. So they agreed. They either trust me or think I'm crazy, one or the other, but agreed to jump on board with us. And so I've got the ops chiefs from the departments, the deputy from my department, and then a battalion chief from each of the departments. And we've got a work group going through. We started with a list of terminology. We're going to agree this is what we're going to call fire attack. This is what we call ventilation. This is what we're calling search. This is what we call all clears. This is how we're going to progress things from, if I'm the IC in the buggy, this is how I'm going to call it. If I'm the first in officer, this is what I'm going to call it. We're now working on our size up and our follow-up reports, initial radio reports. This is how we're going to do it so that we're all on the same page, at least out of the gates, and what we call it. So it's a long story, but it's a cool opportunity to start from scratch. We don't need to pay anybody to use the words. We can just build something that works in our jurisdiction, and then we can share it with our neighbors. I've got in the Portland metro area, there's a few other departments we've been talking to that are interested in what we're doing. And maybe if it works and we're successful, maybe we can share it with them and they can use it for free and apply it to their departments. So that's one of the things I'm working on.
One of that would consume, I'm imagining, pretty much everybody in the entire world. And you're like, oh, that's just one thing. So you talked about everything from the beginning of the start of a new ICS system and then from a tactics base. So my question is to you, you referred multiple times tactics inserting into that ICS system or the plan you guys are coming with. How much of it is going to be tactic based? Should it be at all? And then the other question is how do you make something like that like a living or breathing document? Because we were talking not too long ago here in the Valley, just a bunch of the captains, and we were going along the lines of Volume 2 is so stale because we believe when in the inception, it was supposed to be this ongoing transitional system that is constantly adapting and moving and getting better and changing. But unfortunately, when that regime ended, it then just nothing ever changed. So I know I asked a bunch, but how do you feel on especially the ICS and the tactics and how involved that really should be? And then I got a couple questions about you and your neighboring departments, sir.
Yeah, so tactics are a part, not connected to the ICS system, but at least the way we're building it and the way my lizard brain looks at it, we have to talk about tactics so we figure out the terminology for the ICS system. So if I'm doing X, I've got to call it this. If the truck company is doing Y, we've got to call it this. And so the tactics aren't connected to the actual system, but in the conversation, tactics are involved. So we're making sure that we call it the right thing. So there will be a clear delineation between tactics and the ICS and the functions of command, but we just want the terminology to be the same. So if the IC is asking for something, the truck company or the engine company or squad or whatever company is doing, they know what they're asking for, and then they can apply that tactic to things. So hopefully we'll keep those separate. So that's the first part, is they shouldn't be connected. The live document, I think that's the real struggle. So essentially, the way I'm looking at it is it's a terminology problem. So if we can have the SOGs for how we do a thing and what do we call it. I stole this from the training chief in the previous department wanted to have a terminology SOP. So I think if you have the same terminology, if that document's live, then as we bring in new things, as FSRI brings in new studies, instead of calling it VES or VEIS, we can call it targeted search or window based or door based search. We can change the word, the action and the definition still stays the same, and we don't have to rebuild the whole system. We're just changing terminology, and then we're not tied to a lot of people at my rank and other high ranking officers have a fear of changing policies, and they're scared to make a change. Once we get a policy done, they're kind of put their hands up like, well, we've got a policy on it. We can't change it now. And that's where I think you get into the stale system where no one's willing to make that change. But if you have a living document that's terminology with new studies, new science, new tests, new things from FSRI, we can come in and make a change to a word, and we're not changing a policy on the ICS system. At least that's how I'm looking at it. In full disclosure, this is my first time creating an ICS system from scratch. We're making it up as we go, and that's how we're thinking about it. And hopefully that we can apply it that way and keep that terminology live, and then build it up around as we change tactics or we figure out new ways to do different things.
All right, Chief. I was literally just typing my question as we're kind of concluding there. So, because you are now in a position, first of all, you've never been in. You're developing something that you've from the ground up that you've never done. So I know it's a learning process, but as all of us, especially the hard chargers that are trying to make a difference and going outside the scope to do this for the fire service, what was deep down coming into it the most important thing besides the common terminology in the ICS system for you? Because obviously you've been through multiple different systems. So you're like, I know you pulled things you liked and didn't like from others. So if you're saying, hey, I get to create this document and this system from the ground up in like favoring me, what was the biggest desire that I got to make sure it is a hard fact that this has to be part of our system? What was that for you, if you even had one, Chief?
For me, it's empowering company officers. That is the most important rank in the fire service. It's the most influential and can do the most good. They're the face of the fire department. Those company officers are smelling it, seeing it, touching it, and we have to empower them to make those fire ground decisions. So we have to have a system that I'm going to say they're driving. They're not command, but command is receiving constant feedback from the company officers. They need to understand what they're saying, what it means when they say that, and we have to empower the company officers to make those fire ground decisions. So the system has to be built around empowering them. I don't want to handcuff the captains to do something that works from my office at the downtown station, or something that only works from the buggy that's parked outside that can't see it and smell it. So we have to look at it two ways. I do believe the IC needs to be in charge. They're truly in command, and they are ultimately responsible for what happens or doesn't happen on the fire scene. But they're receiving that constant info, constant feedback from the company officers, and we have to empower them to be able to act. So that was my overarching goal, is to really empower that company officer position, because that's the backbone of the fire service, is that company officer and their companies.
I absolutely love that was the driving force, because that reverts back to how we are trying to effectively make training different right now for our company officers, where we are trying to interject more and more modalities to give that company officer opportunities to use different tactics, different methods, whatever it is for what we're talking about. And I always stated with this, like, I want to teach you 20 different ways to do one thing, because I want to empower you, because at dark 30, right, in that time of day, that weather, that location, that setback, the only guy that knows what to do at that point is that first in company officer, and he has to make a split decision with very little bit of information. So again, yes, I agree. Most important job in the America is in the all fire service, American Fire Service for sure. But it is amazing that going into it, you're like, hey, I understand what these guys have to do. So let me build a system that's going to empower them to be able to make that decision. That's how I took what you said. And I was like, whoa, I'm like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. Like, don't tell me what I can't do. Give me 20 other ways to do it.
Yes, that's the goal. That's how, I mean, if all of us chief officers fall off the
Yes.
earth tomorrow, calls are going to happen, and the company officer is going to run the calls and make the difference. That's where the rubber meets the road, and we have to empower them to do that. This is part of the reason why I'm not a huge proponent of pre-arrival assignments. I don't want to trap someone into forcing them to do a thing, because like you said, today at 2:30 it's going to be different than tomorrow at noon, and I want them to have the flexibility and the training, the 20 ways to do something, so that they make the most correct decision in the moment, and we'll analyze afterwards how it went or what we could do to change it. But in the moment, they have to have that option and have the autonomy and the support from us. For me, as the assistant chief of emergency operations, I'm like the number one support person for the crews. My job, I'm support personnel, but I'm supporting them to be able to run calls and do their job. And this is a way that I think we do that, by building an ICS system that is expandable, that they run and that they manage, again, in a split second, hopefully making the right choice every time.
And so I have a question then, because you harped on it with just for a second that you're not a big fan of predetermined running assignments. So
Yeah.
with the system that you're developing, one of obviously the biggest issues we have in the system where I work is, and again, my personal opinion, over communication on the radio. So in your system, how much radio traffic or chatter would there be? Like, is that strung out, or is it a free for all when it comes down to if we have to talk or we're not going to talk at all?
So the other thing we're doing on top of just making our own ICS system, we're changing our radio system and going to a 2-channel system like much of California uses, with command and TAC channels. So we'll limit the amount of command to dispatch traffic that's happened on the fireground channel. And I think the other important part of the ICS system is leave the radio open for maydays. That's
Mhm.
has to be one of our most important goals, is that the radio's open as much as possible to have firefighters be able to call a mayday. And you've been on countless numbers of calls and have probably talked to hundreds of people where multiple times during a fire they can't get out, they couldn't get on the radio to transmit something, couldn't get on the radio and doing things. So I am a believer in not having pre-arrival instructions. But if we have, essentially using Brunacini terminology, right? If we have those set outcomes, we're going to get those consistent results. But so we have expectations that we'll put on the company officers and the IC. This should be your sequential sort of orders, and companies can anticipate, if that first engine stretches to 2.5, then I can pretty much guarantee if I'm second engine, I'm on water supply. If they're stretching 3/4, there's a chance I could get another assignment that's not water supply. I have to be ready for that option, because the need isn't as prevalent as if they were stretching at 2.5 on their first stretch. So there has to be built in that flexibility. I don't know if we can totally erase pre-arrival and pre-arrival assignments. I'm a big believer in high rise and mid rise, where we have to get some foundation things set up. I do believe in pre-arrival orders for those type of calls, so that we are consistently understanding who's going to be at the exposure floor, who's making the connections. So we just avoid confusion. We can't delay those type of things. But on the residential fires, and even on your vegetation fires, you have to have some flexibility to be able to move companies where you need them quickly. And hopefully, with a brief terminology, you can make that assignment quickly. You can echo it back quickly and get off the air and go to work.
Copy. And in the system that you're running, who is, you said there has to be an incident commander. And I agree also, because somebody is solely responsible no matter what. In your system, is it the first arriving battalion chief, or is that first in company officer going to be running command? We understand that that first in officer will be liable for command no matter what he says on the radio legally, but outside of that, who's running command in your system that you guys are building right now?
So the direction we're headed is that first company officer will be the initial IC, and they will get essentially call to play, get things started. Kind of what we talked about at the beginning. They should know the layout. They should know the occupancy. They should have stretched the line to the front door. They possibly did a quick hit if depending on fire conditions. Hopefully a firefighter forced the door, did a live fire layout. They're the most knowledgeable of what's going on in that structure and what conditions change from their arrival. So having them as visual IC makes a lot of sense, and they're setting the foundation. And then depending on what they find, they can either transfer to that second engine or wait for the BC to arrive, depending on geographics and what would make the most sense.
So so you're allowed to transfer command multiple times, which is that would be a benefit in my eyes. So if in your system, and again, your opinion, we're on that false fire that we have no idea what it really looks like, but our bread and butter house fire. But with that said, I'm the initial arriving officer. I now pass command to the second in officer because I have work to do. It is a working fire. Will that second in officer stay exterior, attach his crew kind of deal to be able to keep an overall outlook from the exterior? Or is he going to run interior command? And then if he is, are you a fan of running command from interior, or do you prefer obviously from the exterior?
Yeah, so we're a 3-person engine department. So all of our engines are 3. Actually, our trucks are minimum staff with 3, and we put the 4th on if we have extras. So with that staffing, we generally have to keep them outside because we don't have enough people on the first engine to cover 2 and 2 out in Oregon State. So in my blue card experience, using that experience, you wouldn't transfer to that second engine. So that first engine company officer did a size up, saw the fire conditions, maybe put water in the fire, forced the door, stretch the line, did everything. They know everything about that structure. And then we send in the engine that just pulled up, hit the brake, ran out of the cab, throwing their masks on, and we're going to throw them inside. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So we're building a system where you can transfer to that second engine, assuming there's a gap where you do have that information, and that first in officer send them inside, go to work. That second officer would stay outside and run command from outside, so they have the big picture. They can see everything. Just like I was a medic for 22 years, and once you put your hands on it, you lose the big picture. And to your point, someone's going to be responsible for that scene. And if you're inside and you can't say, I got people in trouble because I couldn't see, that'd be hard for me to sleep at night if we lost somebody for that. So at this point of the development, that second officer would stay outside. That could be the second engine. That could be a battalion chief that would assume command. That command transfer, really, for me, in my lizard brain, I'm going from that first engine. Everything's external. No one's in the ideal H. Everything's outside. The second engine pulls up. Really, nothing's happened. As soon as I see the whites of their eyes or I hear the air brake, you've got command. We're fire attack floor 1. Bob's your uncle. Nothing. There's not a lot of information I have to exchange. I have the one assignment, their command, and we move on. So it seems simple, seems pretty safe to me. Not a lot of things to track, not a lot of crews to lose. And then we can make a formal or more formal command transfer when the BC comes up. And now they're going to be a fixed stationary IC that's outside. Now I can commit the rest of my company's interior or whatever tasks.
I got you. Like, I was kind of just curious because one of my biggest pet peeves, and this is just me on the fire ground, and the chiefs laugh at me all the time, but I'm probably the only officer that gives it up immediately. As soon as I hear chief whoever, that's my next transmission. And it's like, they'll even talk to me afterwards. Like, Steve, I was going to take it or whatever. I'm like, you don't understand. I wanted to go back to work. Like I don't want to run anything anymore. And I came from a different system, and I was so used to that first in officer. Like I guess I was raised in a system where we were told to believe that you could not run efficient or effective command from the interior because obviously lack of all of our senses. And I personally agree with that. I don't believe that I can start giving out assignments when I do have blinders on because of the conditions of the house. Yes, I can relay information about ventilation needs or exterior openings. Yes, absolutely. But to tell the next engine what I want them to do, I want them to get a freaking handline in the house, right? But I don't, at that point, I don't want to be thinking like, are they coming from the West or whatever? So I give it up right away. And I want to go back to work. So what do you think? Like, again, I believe chief officers should just freaking run it. Like, that's why they became chiefs, but
yeah, the goal is to give it to the battalion chief as soon as possible. That's the goal.
Okay.
There's a great opportunity for company officers to keep command sometimes and have that experience if they're not riding the seat, if they want to promote. There's a lot of great reasons to keep them there. But that if you just look at simply engine companies should be doing task level work. They should be stretching lines, throwing ladders, doing searches. That is engine and truck company work. And if you're going to be running the fire, that's battalion chief work, and or whatever rank you have, and district chief, however that works. They should be running the scene and let the task people do task stuff. That's ideally how it should work. We, based on staffing and different needs, stuff, sometimes company officers have to keep command or doing that. But, I know it's been talked about on probably every podcast in the last, at least 3 or 4 years. Most of our departments have less than five. Half of our department has less than 5 years. Half of your department has less than 5 years. So if you take the company officer off of that, now you've got 2 fairly junior people making fireground tactical decisions. It's not the best place for us. And not that it gets better if you got 2 15-year or 18-year people on your crew, which is great if you have that, but it's not ideal. You still should put the task level workers doing the tasks that they are best at.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. And 100%, because there is so many things that I need to worry about command wise or operational wise at the task level, supervising my guys or helping them with whatever the mission that we were trying to accomplish. So yeah, I love that. And again, I'm just not a fan, or I never believed it was a good idea or I could run effective command from the interior, but everyone feels a little bit different. So before we kind of start transition to just some fun fireman stuff, is there anything else you want to talk about, either in the ICS system as a whole, what you're working on in particularly, or anything like that, before we transition off to just some running assignment stuff?
No, I don't think so. Nothing specific. I just think it should be a simple thing. And I think there's a lot of ways that people have complicated the ICS system, and to make it confusing, make it sound weird, and just make it harder for us to comply with the things. And my goal is just to make something very simple that's firefighter resistant. Nothing can be firefighter proof, but firefighter resistant. And we can all be on the same page, and we can just be consistent across, whether I show up on an MVA, I show up on a house fire, vegetation fire, commercial fire, aircraft emergency, whatever it is, I can just follow the thing I do all the time. One of my favorite guys, and if you ask Chief Pirtle about Matt Ramp, one of my real heroes from the tech team, he'd always talk about carabiners, and he would talk about locking the carabiner and say, you always screw down so you never screw up. And so I've taken that into like all the things. So as we're looking at the ICS system, like, you should always screw down so you never screw up. The more consistent I can make it across all disciplines, all scenes I can arrive on, I'm less likely to screw this thing up. And so that's really consistent and simple is the goal, and not try to make it fancy, big, and harder than it needs to be.
And I love it. And I wish we could have one for the entire fire service. And like we've talked about in previous episodes, like the military does it. Why can't we do it? And everyone's majority answer of the time is they say egos, because unfortunately, Chief, they always point to the cross bugles and they say, listen, because they want to make sure they're still the boss. But I don't know. I think it could happen, but it would be nice if we could figure it out. I remember when I first came out here, I had 11 years on the job prior, and no one told me how anything worked. I just had to go through the academy all over again, and I started running calls. And the first real job I was on, I was just going to work, and people are like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid? Like, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? You talk backwards. You like, you stay in the truck till someone tells you to do something. You're like, what in the world is going on over here? But, I'm like, I'm pretty positive they thought I was mildly retarded for a while. But again, it's like, I was just under impression, like, I was raised in one system. I'm like, this is the American Fire Service. I bet we all do it like this. And it's so dramatically different from department to department. It's like, why?
Yeah. It's been really interesting. And I'm old enough, I'm at the tail end of my career, and the attitudes, the personalities of the people, the cross bugles you mentioned that are running the departments is so different than when I started. And there's already been a transition in my career. And I think for like my kid who's on the job now, I think by the time, hopefully it keeps going. I guess I'll be optimistic. I hope it keeps going. And I think a lot of those barriers are coming down. I think the egos are going away. The fiefdom of, well, this is the way I do it, or this is the way my department does it. That's really going away. Departments in our area here in the Pacific Northwest, where we used to not play well together, there's now regional ops chiefs group where all the ops chiefs are together, like, hey, what are you guys doing? Hey, we're doing this. Hey, let's try this. Hey, can you send me that? Let's share this. And that didn't happen 10 years ago. And now all of us have kind of gone through the ranks together, and now we're in the cross bugle seats, and we're willing to share because these guys are our friends. So let's talk to them and see what they're doing and what's working or not working, and sharing. And I'm hopeful that as more transition happens over the next few years, that we see more of those barriers come down, less egos of, this is my thing, or, I'm not hoarding information, which I know I saw early in my career. If someone knew something, they would hold it over you. Well, I know this, or maybe I'll share with you. And I think it's changing now to where we should all know the same thing. And if I know something, I should teach you, I should mentor you to be able to learn this on your own. I think it's changing. I'm optimistic. I hope that it continues to get better. I know I've seen it improve a ton in my 29 years in the fire service. It's a different thing right now. And I hope that it keeps going that way, because it feels really good right now. And hopefully that's just going to get better. Maybe we can get there someday.
Well, it's good coming, especially from an assistant chief. So the guys that are still listening at this point, I hope he kind of took back for a second there because I did. So this is what I'm talking about. So the boys need to promote right to these positions like Chief did, because then we can make the fucking effective change in the correct direction. And I love it because I tell guys the same thing. We were just teaching at Arizona State Fire School. We did forcible entry for free 24 hours. It was awesome. We forced doors for 24 hours, taught all these guys up. And at the last day, the last minute, we're standing across. And this is what we're telling them. Hey, it is your fucking job now to take everything that you just learned, teach your guys, right? And pass it on. Become the dude, right? And then they'll teach someone else and they become the dude. And it's like, that's what we want. We tell recruits, but I think we kind of forget it when we get more time on the job because we feel important. We tell the kids all the time, hey, dude, when you're gone, the truck still goes, right? It's a different name and it's going to always go forever. It's a machine. We have the privilege to be part of the machine, but at the same time, it never stops. So like, why not coach up the next guy to be better than us? So it's, and imagine, because give it back, make it better. And again, like I was listening to a podcast the other day and he was saying like the guy spec'd out this immaculate tiller truck, 247 feet of ground ladders. I was like half chubbed the entire time listening to it. And he's like, and the craziest thing is he promoted to battalion chief and then the truck came in. He's like, but I did it because he goes, I wanted to pass that on to the department, knowing that I would never work a day on that truck. He goes, it kills me every time. He's like, but I did that for the guys coming up. He goes like, because I want them to do that for the next group. And I'm like, that's the American Fire Service, my opinion.
I mean, it sounds arrogant, I guess, but I was on a truck, I was on a TDA in a city I grew up in, 10 years as a company officer. I got the best assignment. I've got the best firefighters that you could imagine working on my rig, guys that were part of one of the founding members of Brothers in Battle. So these guys are all in the job. They're amazing. And I couldn't ask for better firefighters. And I didn't have to talk to them. We get on scene. I could grunt and point and we would go to work. I'm probably the luckiest captain there's ever been. How much influence do I have as a captain? So opportunity to promote, like, okay, I've complained about every BC I've had with the exception of one or two. So maybe if I could do it, I could make difference. Sounds arrogant, but maybe I can make a change. So then I become a BC. I think I was fairly good at being a BC. Then the ops chief job opens up, and I was the biggest, loudest complainer and problem to all the ops chiefs. And it came up, okay, I either have to step up or I've got to shut up. I can't complain if I don't put my name in the hat. There's no way the chief will promote me. At the time, I was the union president of the BC group. I'm loud. I'm not a quiet guy. And I'm like, there's no way he's going to promote me. I tell my wife, yeah, I'm going to put my name in, but I'm not going to be a deputy chief. It's fine. And then I come out number one in the process, and I'm like, crap, like this could be a real thing. Like, I don't know what to do with this. Am I a day shift guy? Can I be a day shift guy? Like, what do I do now? And then I'm imposter syndrome because now I'm a deputy chief. I don't know what that means. I've not had good examples of those. I wasn't mentored by good ones to show me how to be an ops chief. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll be the ops chief that I always wanted to have. And maybe that's the best I can do. So hopefully what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you got to step up into those roles to try to make a difference, try to make things better, try to move things forward, help things grow and improve. And it does mean taking one for the team and not being able to work back on the thing you love and do that. And it's hard. I still miss being on shift. It's hard. It's been 3 years now since I promoted to a day shift job, and I love what I'm doing because I think I do have a positive impact on the fire ground and helping make things better, but I still miss it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
still love
good,
it. It's
right?
still the
Because
best
that means
job
you're a
ever.
fireman, you know?
It's
And that's
just,
all we want. We want firemen chiefs. We want chiefs that are firemen, period, the end. You know?
I'm working, my boss is a fireman who promoted through the ranks. And when he started recruiting me to come here, I'm like, I could work with this guy. He gets it. He's ops minded and supports, collaborative efforts with everybody, the team. He's building a team to put forth his more mission as a firefighter. And I think hopefully the department will benefit from it over the years as we get things in place.
I'm sure. I'm sure. All right, Chief. Well, before we get to the questions for the end of the season, so guys love this part of the episode. So we always ask, because again, like what we're talking about, it doesn't matter what department you work for, we all do it different. So in your fire department, I always preference the bread and butter, 95% house fire, single line, no goosebumps. It's going to go good every single time. What's that assignment sound like with you guys? And then what's a typical tactical layout for your department, sir?
So right now it's 4 engines, a truck, 2 BCs, and ambulance. So that'll be the response assignment. I'm working on finishing SOG, so we'll add the second truck. So it'll be a 4 and 2, and then 2 BCs will be the residential alarm. And then tactically right now, those are some of the changes happening. But generally speaking, there's a handline stretch for the fire attack, backup line, primary search, and a RIT company.
Let me ask you a question, because you're a truckie, so not where you came from, but your department now, does your truck split 2-2s when you guys have 4? Do they do it outside inside team? What's the truck culture like in your department right now?
So they've got a really good truck culture. Even having 3-person trucks part of the time, they work really well with what they've got and have been working on that for a lot of years. So if we have 4, they will split 2 and 2 and can go outside inside. If they have 3, then they're not going to split and they'll be all in or all out for the task.
Gotcha. No, I love it. And it's the last couple episodes I've had the privilege to have a bunch of truckies on. Before your episode airs, I have a Chicago fireman that's coming on. That was a South City truck guy. But it's funny, like I had mentioned to some guys around here, I'm like, hey man, I'm like, you realize a lot of trucks or ladders, whatever you call them, do a 2-2 split, and then I would just toss it out there. I'm like, what do you think about it? Just trying to get honest feedback from guys that are like born and raised in single systems. But it's funny, like a lot of guys, I believe, feel like 2 dudes isn't enough to do a task. And I disagree. But I'm just curious because, again, you're assistant chief of ops, right? But you're a truckie through and through. So just your personal opinion, not necessarily your department, but what do you think about that?
I think I guess I'm a part hypocrite. I don't So if we have a 4-person engine, I don't want to split a 4-person engine. I
Right.
want the 4 people on the engine to stay. Shouldn't have a B team on an engine. We should use that to make the stretch, allow the company officer to be aware of what's going on and be able to manage what's going on. So on an engine, I think we need 4-person engines and not split them. On the trucks, I think you do have a capacity to split, especially if you're splitting for surge and vent. You can have 2 inside doing a primary surge off a hose line, being supported by a company on a hose. You got 2 people. You can make good searches. You can clear rooms quickly. You're not bumping bottles all the time. We're not always searching McMansions. So you have a lot of space with 2 people and you can cover it quickly. And then on your outside team, you can quickly make whatever openings horizontal. If that's you get some horizontal openings up, get stuff vented, or you can quickly transition to roof work and 2 people, Sounder and a Sawyer, get roof work done in the residential world. If we transition to commercial or bigger things, then I think we're better off keeping our companies together and have a company officer on that roof. If I'm going to commercial roof, we don't split for commercials. You're going to be all out and you'll take your full complement up to the roof, and then you have a company officer watching the safety. So residential split makes a lot of sense to me. Commercials and whatnot, I think we need to keep 4, and I don't think we should split engines.
Yeah.
Hopefully
I love
that's
it.
not too hypocritical.
No, I don't believe that's hypocritical at all, because again, a 4-man engine is a 3-man engine, because four guys are not working together. So that's my opinion. So it's a 3-man freaking engine. So again, you don't split a 3-man truck, but so I love it. I'll tell you what, your ladders split on residentials, not on commercials. I'll come over any day. That sounds amazing. So perfect. Strong truck work. Awesome. All right. So thank you again for marching out ICS. I know a lot of guys are like, oh my God, but we use it. It's fucking important, right? So let's get a really good system. And now we got real fucking firemen in promoted positions making effective change in the American Fire Service. So freaking thank you for being a hard charger all the way up with the gold badge too, and I know it gets harder the higher you go. First of all, Chief, thank you, but let's do the why, brother. So we've been marching it out, but you've been in the fire service for over 30 years. So why? Was it something you came out the womb with the Halligan ready to rock and roll? Or is it something you figured out later on in life? So why'd you decide to be a firefighter?
The simple, so I'm a 2nd generation. My grandfather was a firefighter. He died the year I was born. So I don't have any stories from him, from Kern County, how it was for him. He promoted up to battalion chief. And then at the time, it was a 12-day on, 12-day off rotation for him. And his buddy would fly him up to the firehouse, land his airplane on the road in front of the fire station in the middle of nowhere, Kern County, Bakersfield, and then pick him up 12 days later in an airplane. And so he got tired of being away from his family and his farm. So he demoted himself back down to captain because it was 4 days on and 4 days off, and finished his career as a company officer. So that's about all I know about his fire service career. But so when I was newly married, and I tricked my wife into thinking I was going to be somebody smart, and I had some impression I was going to be a physical therapist or something that was going to be really smart. And I think I did about 2 hours of college, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to be how lucky I'm going to be at this college thing. It's going to be a real problem. And I'd drive by fire stations, and it was just, I felt giddy every time I drive by a fire station or see an engine or truck drive by. It was just something inside of me that it was just a drive, just something that I knew I had to do. So I went and started volunteering, and from walking in the door, I knew it was where I belonged. And then it was just a drive ever since then. And I've never looked back. I've loved every day, even being on days. And some of your listeners may not believe me, but even being on days, I still love coming to work. It's still the greatest job. And whatever it was, whatever Halligan I was born with, or I carry a pig. So in the back of my SUV, I do have my fire SUV. I do have a pig. I still carry it with me, and I probably will until the day I die. I'll keep a pig close. But yeah, something inside of me, and I've never looked back. And I'm glad it worked, because I don't think I have a fallback plan. This was plan A. Plan B wasn't an option. This is all I had, and I'm fortunate that it's worked out this long.
That's that's freaking awesome. And the fact, like, I knew I liked you for a reason. My officer tool that I keep, my personal one's a piglet, and I have
Okay.
that on purpose because I don't need the larger. I'll take the smaller, lighter, and it works for my tool. So I have that, and I have a Lockwood, and that's my
Okay.
tool package because I can get through pretty much everything with that. But it's amazing. In the fire, and then you said fire SUV, which is the best jokes ever. And I drop those all the time around here on these Chiefs, and they don't freaking appreciate it because I'm like, oh yeah, the fire SUV, and they're like, what? And I'm like, they're like, it's a pickup truck. I'm like, never mind. It was an amazing freaking comedy show.
Years ago, I don't know how long ago, but years ago, I actually brought the New York Hook to Vancouver Fire. I bought one and started bringing around with me as there they call them skaters. So I would just skate into my New York Hook and start training and practicing. And so up until my last day on the truck, I carried a hook, New York Hook, and a pig. That was
Oh yeah.
and then firefighter carry Halligan and other tools. But that
Yep.
was my officer compliment.
I love it. And the fact that you have an officer compliment is huge because there's a generation between yours and mine that forgot that part. And for some reason, they were either told, taught, or whatever that this was all their job was. And it's like, and again, like what we said, an engine company is actually three. And now if you have a guy that just does this, you got two dudes, get the fuck out of here,
Well,
But
I will say, in defense of all good firefighters, my good firefighters would always try to take my tools and make sure I didn't get to do any work. So I did have tools, but those guys were kind of scoundrels and would try to push me out of the way of doing any work and steal my tools so that I couldn't. So I did make efforts, but those guys would push me out,
good.
which I
That
think
means
is the
that,
right.
yeah, good firemen.
They're doing
Absolutely.
they're doing their job correctly. Like I said, they were the best firemen ever, and that was their goal for sure.
That's awesome. All right. So we got the why. So let's talk traditions. Or especially as a fools organization out here, we were we're desperately trying to hold on our traditions and then get back some of the ones that we've lost throughout the years. So it doesn't have to be your department, but what's your favorite American Fire Service tradition? But more importantly, why? Why is it your favorite?
I've heard a couple of good answers on your podcast. I did like the station designs and station fried. I did like that one a lot, but I got to say it's the kitchen table. There's better, no problems that can be fixed. You got the here. I'm gonna show you. We got the real guys just showed up.
There you go. What's up, brothers?
Some water in. So
I love it.
I'm out back of downtown station,
I love it.
but pretty much you can fix all the world's problems at a kitchen table and call out all the BS and kind of wade through and get down to what really matters to your crew and to the department. So it's just that kitchen area is special.
It is, and multiple people have said kitchen table, coffee table, depending on where they're from. But the crazy thing about it is, even though a lot of people give the same answer, the why is different. And that's why it's so fucking amazing because it's so multifaceted. And
Yeah.
it's probably the most deeply thing in our tradition, I believe. And again, if we ever lose that, it's game over from there on out. Might as well just give our jobs to robots and we're done.
Yes. That would be the next step.
Yeah. All right. So here's my favorite question. So you can snap your fingers, zero sweat equity, instant gratification. Happens right now, king of the day. You could change one thing in the American Fire Service. What would it be? But more importantly, why? Why would you change, add, or delete whatever this is?
That is a tough one, and I'm gonna have to pick a touchy feely one because I think it's probably the most pressing to me, and I think it's mentoring. I think it's bringing back or strengthening mentoring in the fire service. I think we are in a weird time where that is being lost. I think the invention of the independent dorms and everyone going to their corners, there's a separation. They're removing from the coffee table, the kitchen table. There's there's this divide starting to happen. And I don't think we have the senior firefighters that are sharing the information like they used to. And that mentoring, I think we're missing it. And I talked to Chief Scott Thompson the other day about how to start a mentoring program here in my department. because I think it's probably the thing we're missing the most. And if we could flip that switch and have a mentoring culture in our departments, it would fix a lot of the divide that's happening. It would fix a lot of, if you look at, I think it fixes overtime, right? We've got most departments, there's probably 30 or 40% of the department is working all the overtime, and the other 60% are doing nothing. They're checked out, they do their shift and they go home. And I think that's a side effect of not having mentorship in the department. So I'm probably a little more Pollyanna on this and optimistic about it. But I think if we fix the mentoring problem, we change a lot of the culture in a lot of the departments, and we bring that family. It probably strengthens the kitchen table and brings the fire service closer together, like it was not that many years ago. So mentoring,
I
that'd be my answer.
I love it. No one has said that before, and I'm like, man, I wonder where he's going to go with this. And I I love it because it makes sense, and I never thought of it that way. And I agree with you 100% because I have personally seen from East Coast to West Coast, no difference, where guys will get promoted and they're like, bro, I got mine, right? And that's that's it. They hit their pinnacle. It's like, cool, dude, you got to like your goal. Let's help the next guy get to his goal. And there's still going to be superior officers and not as great officers, right? But at least you're going to have guys trying harder and then maybe building that bond more. And then again, just passing on the information, because what drives me crazy personally is I can answer a question for somebody that has a technical question about either a tactic or a fire department function or whatever it is, and be able to answer and explain it to them. And then they go, man, you're the first one that explained it to me, so I actually understand it. And I'm like, that fucking sucks. Like, I've said it before, like, I wish we could get to a point where there's no shmees. Like, there's no subject matter experts because of what we're trying to do. Pass it on, pass it on, pass it on, and then encourage them to do the same. But it sucks when it's like, and then you get this overwhelming feeling. It's like, I got to be at more places. And I think that's why that 30% of the fire department works all the overtime. You're like, oh, I got to be more places, right? Because if I don't work at station whatever one today, those guys will never hear about that last call that we learned a shit ton about, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't have that good communication, that mentorship. And yeah, dude, Chief, I love it. That's a first. I give my answer was we're going to murder out all the trucks, black on black on black. Like, come on. And then you gave a really good answer, boss. So that's why they pay you the big bucks, you know?
Well, I'm not opposed to murder out the trucks either. That's fine too. I don't have any problems with that. That's okay. I just, when I look at, so I taught our academy for a bunch of years, and I was the ladder instructor for longer than that. I love teaching ladders. I love everything about it. And so many times people don't understand, why are we holding the halyard? Why are you holding the halyard when you pull it? It actually releases the dogs. What's the purpose? Why am I footing it one way? Why am I all the things? And a lot of times there's like, I don't know, you just do it that way, which is not helpful to anybody. So, we have to be able to teach and facilitate learning and create a drive to want to learn more, so that everyone's like, it's okay to ask, why do I do it this way? And you can answer, well, this is why. This is why I do it this way in this situation, why I'll do it that way in that situation, and just give them the tools. So
I
that's
love
the
it,
goal.
Chief. Thank you so much for taking time every day at work. The boys, I see the boys are probably razzing you up and everything else. So good for fucking them. They should be. But seriously, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for talking about the ICS system. More importantly, thank you for what you're doing to better the American Fire Service, because all it takes is a bunch of guys to get really good at stuff going, and then it just keeps spreading. So I love to see good things happen to good dudes. And obviously, you've been on the job forever. So again, from one truckie to another, congratulations, Chief. Fucking hell of a good job so far. Please keep up the good work for the brothers. We need it. Trust me, we need chiefs like you. Like, we need the fucking firemen in those positions. So again, thank you. Before we sign off, boss, is there anything you want to leave the audience with?
I think always be a learner and just stay after it. I think just everyone needs to keep hard charging, make a difference, and always try to learn more, make the American Fire Service better. I think that's should be all of our goals.
It should be. And again, thank you, Chief. I appreciate you. For all you guys that have made it this far, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys in another 2 weeks. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in another 2 weeks. Remember to like, share, review if you can. Helps drive traffic to our podcast. Remember, let's leave our ego out of the fire service. It's amazing what we can accomplish when no one's looking for credit. Much love. Let's stop beating our own and become better firemen. Catch you next time.